The cremation had been on a Thursday. There's a small chapel in North Vancouver that overlooks the inlet, and Elizabeth had always loved the view of the mountains reflected in the water. 43 years of marriage, and I knew every one of her preferences by heart. She wanted a simple service. No flowers donations to the Architectural Preservation Society instead. She'd spent 30 years designing heritage restorations across British Columbia, and those old buildings meant more to her than any floral arrangement ever could. I stood at the front of the chapel in my navy suit, the one Elizabeth had picked out for me 5 years ago, and watched our daughter Jennifer dab at her eyes with a tissue. Her husband Marcus stood beside her, with his hand on her shoulder, his expression appropriately solemn. My grandson Daniel sat in the back row with his guitar case beside him, his face genuinely red from crying. He'd been close to his grandmother, really close. Not the obligatory visit on holidays kind of close, but the call every week, show up for dinner kind of close. The service lasted 40 minutes. People I'd known for decades came up to shake my hand and offer condolences. Elizabeth's colleagues from the firm, our neighbors from the house in Kitsilano. My brother flew in from Calgary. It was all very proper, very respectful, very Elizabeth. What wasn't Elizabeth was what happened 3 days later. I was sitting in the study, Elizabeth's study, really, with its drafting table and shelves of architecture books, when Jennifer knocked on the door. It was 10 in the morning on a Sunday. She usually called before coming over, but I heard the key in the lock, and then her voice in the hallway. "Dad, are you home?" In the study, I called back. She appeared in the doorway, Marcus trailing behind her. Jennifer was 42, looked like her mother around the eyes, but had my tendency toward impatience. She was wearing expensive athleisure wear, the kind that costs $300 but is designed to look casual. Marcus wore golf clothes. They both had that particular expression I'd come to recognize over the years, the one that meant they wanted something. "Dad, we need to talk," Jennifer said, sitting down in Elizabeth's chair without asking. Marcus stood behind her like a bodyguard. I set down the photo album I'd been looking at. Pictures of Elizabeth as a young architect, standing in front of her first major restoration project in Gastown. "What about, sweetheart?" "About your situation," she said. "About what happens now." "My situation?" I looked around the study. "I'm doing fine. Sad, obviously, but I'm managing." Jennifer exchanged a glance with Marcus. "Dad, you're 67 years old. You're living alone in this huge house. Have you thought about what comes next?" "I've thought about having dinner," I said, "and maybe taking a walk down to Kitts Beach later. Beyond that, I'm taking things day by day." "That's exactly what we're worried about," Marcus interjected. His voice had that patronizing edge that made my teeth hurt. "You can't just drift through life without a plan. Elizabeth would have wanted you to be practical." I felt my jaw tighten. Marcus had known my wife for 15 years and never once called her anything but Mrs. Harrison until the day she died. Now suddenly he was an expert on what Elizabeth would have wanted. "What exactly are you proposing?" I asked. Jennifer leaned forward. "We think you should move. This house is too big for one person. The stairs alone are a safety hazard. What if you fell? What if you had a medical emergency and nobody found you for days?" "I have a medical alert system," I pointed out. "Elizabeth insisted on it 2 years ago." "That's not enough," Jennifer said firmly. "Marcus and I have been looking at some really nice retirement communities, places where you'd have your own apartment but also access to support services, meals, activities, medical care on site." "You mean a senior's home?" "It's not like that anymore, Dad. These are luxury communities. Some of them have wine bars and fitness centers." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She was biting her lower lip, the way she used to when she was 8 years old and trying to convince me to buy her something at the store. "I appreciate your concern," I said slowly, "but I like my house. Elizabeth and I built a life here. I'm not ready to leave it." "We knew you'd say that," Marcus said. He pulled a folder from under his arm and set it on the desk. "That's why we've already done some preliminary research. There's a place in West Vancouver called Harmony Ridge, very upscale. We could get you in within a month if we move quickly." I didn't open the folder. I said no. Jennifer's expression shifted from concerned daughter to something harder. "Dad, Be reasonable. You can't maintain this property alone. Do you know how much the property taxes are going to be? The maintenance? When was the last time you cleaned the gutters? Or dealt with the furnace? I've been maintaining this house for 40 years. With Mom's help, Jennifer said sharply. She handled everything, Dad. The bills, the maintenance schedules, the contractors. What are you going to do without her? The words stung because there was truth in them. Elizabeth had been the organized one, the planner. But I wasn't helpless. I'd learned how to use the online banking. I had a handyman's number saved in my phone. I could figure things out. I'll manage, I said. Marcus cleared his throat. There's another consideration. Financial. This house is worth, what, $2 million? Maybe more in this market? That's a substantial asset just sitting here while you rattle around alone. If you sold it, you could invest that money. Live very comfortably for the rest of your life. And there it was. The real reason for this conversation. The house isn't for sale, I said. Jennifer stood up abruptly. Dad, you're not thinking clearly. You're grieving. You can't make rational decisions right now. That's why Marcus and I are here to help you. Help me sell my house, you mean? Help you transition, she corrected, to a more appropriate living situation. One where you'll be safe and won't have to worry about anything. I stood up too. I'm not a tall man, but I drew myself up to my full 5'9". Jennifer, I appreciate that you're worried, but I'm 67, not 97. I'm perfectly capable of deciding where I want to live. Are you? Marcus asked. Because from where we're standing, it looks like you're making emotional decisions that could have serious consequences down the road. Get out, I said quietly. Jennifer blinked. What? Get out of my house. Both of you. Dad, don't be. Now. They left, but Jennifer paused at the door, her face flushed. We're trying to help you, whether you see it or not. Don't make this harder than it has to be. After they were gone, I sat in Elizabeth's chair and opened the photo album again. There was a picture of Jennifer at 10, grinning gap-toothed in front of the house the day we moved in. She'd been so excited about her bedroom with the window seat. Now she wanted to sell it for the equity. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. Call me when you're ready to talk rationally. I set the phone down and noticed something on Elizabeth's desk. An envelope, cream-colored and heavy, with my name written in her handwriting. I picked it up, my hands trembling slightly. Inside was a single page. My dearest Robert, it began. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and I imagine our daughter is already circling. I'm sorry to say, I know Jennifer better than either of us wanted to admit. She called me 3 weeks before I died, asking about our estate planning and whether we'd updated our will. She didn't ask how I was feeling. She asked about the will. I stopped reading and looked out the window at the mountains. Elizabeth had known. Of course she'd known. The letter continued. I've made arrangements. Tomorrow, you'll receive a call from Thomas Wright. He's my estate lawyer, yes. I got a new one without telling you, because I didn't want you to worry. Thomas will explain everything. Trust him, darling, and trust the plan. I've known our daughter her whole life, and I know exactly what she'll do. Let her think she's winning. The truth will hurt more that way. All my love, always. E. I read the letter 3 more times before folding it carefully and putting it back in the envelope. The next morning, at exactly 9 o'clock, my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Harrison, this is Thomas Wright. I'm calling regarding your late wife's estate. Yes, I said. I've been expecting you. I'm very sorry for your loss, he said, and he sounded like he meant it. Elizabeth was a remarkable woman and a brilliant architect. She was also one of the most thorough clients I've ever had. She spent 6 months putting everything in place. What exactly did she put in place? That's rather complex. Could you come to my office this afternoon? Say 2 o'clock? I agreed. Thomas Wright's office was in a converted heritage building in Yaletown, which seemed appropriate for Elizabeth's lawyer. He was younger than I expected, maybe 50, with gray temples, and the kind of calm demeanor that probably cost $500 an hour. Please, sit down, Mr. Harrison. He gestured to a leather chair. Can I get you coffee? Water? I'm fine, thank you. He opened a file folder that looked to be about 2 inches thick. Your wife came to me 18 months ago. She'd just received her diagnosis, stage 3, as you know, and she wanted to make sure everything was arranged properly. Not just for you, but to protect you. Protect me from what? From your daughter, primarily. He said it matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. Elizabeth had concerns about Jennifer's financial priorities. She'd observed patterns over the years that worried her. I thought about the phone call Elizabeth had mentioned in her letter, the one where Jennifer asked about the will instead of her mother's health. What kind of arrangements are we talking about? I asked. Thomas pulled out several documents. First, the house. Your house in Kitsilano is held in a trust, has been for the past year, though the transfer was handled quietly. You are the lifetime beneficiary, which means you can live there as long as you want, but you cannot sell it or transfer ownership. I see. Upon your death, the house passes directly to your grandson, Daniel Harrison. Jennifer has no claim to it whatsoever. I felt something loosen in my chest. Daniel. Of course Elizabeth had thought of Daniel. Second, Thomas continued, there's the matter of Elizabeth's professional legacy. Are you aware of the Harrison design royalties? The what? Your wife designed 17 major heritage restorations over her career. She was smart enough to retain licensing rights to her designs. Every time one of those buildings is featured in a publication, used in a film, or reproduced in any commercial capacity, royalties are paid. She consolidated all of those rights into a single trust fund 15 months ago. I stared at him. I had no idea. She wanted it that way. The royalties generate approximately $320,000 per year. That income is yours for life. Upon your death, it goes to Daniel, with a small provision for any future great-grandchildren. $320,000 per year. I'd been teaching high school English for 37 years before retiring, and my pension was comfortable, but nowhere near that. Jennifer doesn't know about this? I asked. Elizabeth was very specific. Jennifer was to be told nothing until after certain events transpired. Events that Elizabeth predicted with surprising accuracy. What events? Thomas smiled grimly. She bet me $100 that Jennifer would try to get you to sell the house within a week of the funeral. She also predicted Jennifer would suggest a retirement home. I believe the exact phrase in her notes was, Jennifer will push for one of those places with a wine bar to make it sound appealing. I almost laughed. It hurt and felt good at the same time. There's one more thing, Thomas said. He pulled out a photograph of a house I recognized immediately. The Okanagan property. Elizabeth's family had owned a small house on Okanagan Lake for 3 generations. It was a modest cabin, really 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, right on the water in Peachland. We'd spent summers there when Jennifer was young. The last time I'd seen it was 5 years ago, and it had been in rough shape. The roof needed replacing, the deck was rotting, and the interior hadn't been updated since 1975. Elizabeth transferred that property into the same trust structure as your Kitsilano house. You're the lifetime beneficiary. Then it passes to Daniel. That old place? I shook my head. It's probably falling apart by now. Thomas's expression was carefully neutral. Actually, Elizabeth had some work done. Quietly. About 18 months ago, she hired a restoration company, one of her former students. Actually, they completely renovated it. New roof, new foundation, modern systems, updated interior, all while maintaining the heritage character. How much did that cost? Approximately $400,000. She paid for it with her own savings and some of the early royalty income. I sat back in my chair. $400,000 to fix up the lake house, and she'd never mentioned it. Never asked me to drive up there with her to see the progress. Never said a word. Why? I asked. Because, Thomas said gently, she knew you'd need somewhere to go. Somewhere Jennifer couldn't touch. Somewhere peaceful. Jennifer knows about the lake house, I said. She used to vacation there as a kid. Yes. And Elizabeth was counting on that. She left very specific instructions about what to tell Jennifer and when. Would you like to hear them? Please. Thomas pulled out a handwritten note in Elizabeth's careful script. When Jennifer inevitably pushes Robert to sell the Kitsilano house, Thomas is to inform her of the trust structure and explain that the house cannot be sold. When Jennifer asks about other assets, Thomas is to mention the Okanagan property, but describe it as it was 5 years ago in disrepair, essentially worthless. Jennifer's nature will take over from there. I looked up. You think she'll want it anyway? Elizabeth did. She wrote, Jennifer will see the lakefront location and dollar signs. She'll offer to take it off Robert's hands, probably positioning it as doing him a favor by assuming the burden of a deteriorating property. Let her. The property transfer is already set up. All Robert has to do is sign. The plan was becoming clear. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Grief that Elizabeth had felt the need to protect me this way. Anger at Jennifer for making it necessary. And something else. Pride, maybe, that my wife had been so clever. What happens after I sign over the Okanagan property? I asked. Thomas smiled. That's where it gets interesting. Over the next 2 weeks, everything unfolded exactly as Elizabeth had predicted. Jennifer called the morning after my meeting with Thomas. Her tone was conciliatory, apologetic. Dad, I'm sorry about the other day. Marcus and I were just worried. We want what's best for you. I know, sweetheart. Have you given any more thought to what we discussed? About the house? Actually, I spoke with an estate lawyer. Elizabeth had set up some trusts. Silence on the other end. Then, what kind of trusts? The house is in a trust. I can't sell it. It passes to Daniel when I die. The silence was longer this time. She left the house to Daniel? What about me? You'll be fine, Jennifer. You and Marcus have good jobs. A nice house. Daniel's just starting out as a musician. He'll need it more. This is ridiculous. Her voice had gone cold. I'm her daughter. I'm the one who should. She stopped herself. I mean, it just doesn't seem fair. Your mother was very thoughtful about these things. Are there other trusts? Other assets? There's the old lake house in Peachland, I said. But it's in terrible shape. I saw it 5 years ago, and the roof was half caved in. Probably needs to be torn down at this point. Another pause. I could practically hear the gears turning in her head. The lake house, she said slowly. On Okanagan Lake? That's the one. Is that in a trust too? No, I lied smoothly. Elizabeth didn't think it was worth protecting. It's just a liability at this point. Lakefront property, Jennifer said. Even if the house is falling apart, the land must be worth something. Maybe. I haven't had it appraised. Dad, listen. What if Marcus and I took that off your hands? You shouldn't have to deal with property maintenance in your condition, at your age. We could handle the sale or renovation or whatever needs to happen. Consider it our way of helping out. That's generous of you, I said. We could draw up some papers. Make it official. That way you don't have to worry about it. Let me think about it. Don't think too long, Dad. These things are easier to handle sooner rather than later. She called back the next day. And the day after that. Each time, she was a little more insistent that I sign over the Okanagan property. Marcus even called once, using his financial advisor voice to explain how holding on to deteriorating real estate was a poor capital allocation decision. Finally, I agreed. Thomas drew up the paperwork. Jennifer and Marcus came over on a Saturday morning, both of them smiling like they'd won the lottery. I signed where Thomas indicated, transferring the Okanagan property to Jennifer's name. You're doing the right thing, Dad, Jennifer said, actually hugging me. This way you can focus on yourself and not worry about that old wreck. I'm sure you'll know what to do with it, I said. They left with the signed documents, and I sat down in Elizabeth's study with a cup of tea. Thomas had told me what would happen next. All I had to do was wait. It took 3 weeks. Jennifer and Marcus drove up to Peachland on a Saturday to assess their new property. I know because Jennifer called me from the car, excited about their plans to flip it for a quick profit. The realtor says lakefront property in Peachland is going for crazy prices these days, she said. Even with a teardown, we could probably clear $300,000 after demolition and lot preparation. That's wonderful, sweetheart. We're about 10 minutes away. I'll send you pictures of how bad it is. Honestly, I can't believe you and Mom let it get this deteriorated. She hung up. I waited. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. Jennifer's name on the screen. Dad. Her voice was shaking. The house. It's completely renovated, brand new. Everything. I didn't say anything. Did you know about this? She demanded. Did you lie to me? I told you what I saw 5 years ago. This renovation had to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Who paid for it? Where did that money come from? You'd have to ask the lawyer, I said calmly. I'm asking you. Your mother handled all the finances, Jennifer. You know that. I could hear Marcus in the background, saying something about contractors and permits. Jennifer came back on the line. We need to talk about this. In person. Tonight. I'm busy tonight. Dad, I'm serious. So am I. Goodbye, Jennifer. I hung up. She called back 6 times. I didn't answer. The next morning, Thomas called me. Jennifer retained a lawyer, he said. They're looking into the renovation history of the Okanagan property. Let them look. They'll find that Elizabeth paid for everything out of her personal savings and the initial royalty income. All legal, all documented. Jennifer owns the property now, free and clear. She also owns the responsibility for it. What does that mean? Property taxes on a fully renovated lakefront home in Peachland are approximately $18,000 per year. Utilities, insurance, and general maintenance will run another $12,000 annually. If she wants to sell it, she'll owe capital gains tax on the difference between her cost basis, which is zero, since you gifted it to her, and the sale price, which would be approximately $1.8 million in the current market. I did the math. Capital gains tax on $1.8 million would be substantial, maybe $400,000 or more. So she either keeps it and pays $30,000 a year in carrying costs, I said slowly, or she sells it and owes hundreds of thousands in taxes. Exactly. And Elizabeth made sure Jennifer couldn't get a mortgage against it because of the trust language in your original transfer. Jennifer owns it outright, but she can't leverage it. She's stuck. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. Elizabeth had known. She'd known exactly what Jennifer would do, exactly how her greed would work, and she'd set the perfect trap. There's more, Thomas said. Jennifer's lawyer sent over a demand letter this morning. She's alleging that you committed fraud by misrepresenting the condition of the property. But I didn't misrepresent anything. I told her what I saw 5 years ago. I know. And I sent back a letter explaining that, along with dated photographs from 5 years ago, showing the property in disrepair, which proves your statement was accurate at the time you made it. I also pointed out that she never asked when you'd last seen the property, never requested an inspection, and signed the transfer papers without any contingencies. It's not your fault she made assumptions. Will she sue? She might try, but she won't win. Elizabeth documented everything. There are emails, receipts, contractor invoices, all showing that the renovation happened after your last visit and that you had no knowledge of it. Jennifer made a bad business decision based on incomplete information. That's not fraud. That's just poor judgment. Over the next month, I learned through mutual friends that Jennifer and Marcus were having financial difficulties. The property tax bill had come due. They'd tried to get a home equity line of credit against their own house to cover the Okanagan expenses, but they were already stretched thin. Marcus's golf club membership was apparently canceled. Jennifer stopped shopping at Whole Foods. She called me once, her voice small. Dad, I need help. The Okanagan house is drowning us financially. Can't you just take it back? I'm sorry, sweetheart. I can't. I don't have that kind of money for the taxes and upkeep. But we can't afford it either. You could sell it. The capital gains tax would bankrupt us. I'm sorry, I said again. I really am. She hung up without saying goodbye. Daniel called me the next day. Grandpa, is it true? About the lake house? What have you heard? Mom called me crying. She said Grandma screwed her over. That some house in the Okanagan is ruining them financially. Your grandmother didn't screw anyone over, I said firmly. She made provisions to protect the people who cared about her. I heard my name mentioned in a trust. The Kitsilano house? Yes. When I'm gone, the house is yours. And the lake house, too. Your mother won't have to worry about it anymore. It'll pass to you at the same time. Silence. Then, Grandma did that? For me? You visited her every week, Daniel. You called her every Sunday. You actually cared about her as a person, not as a source of inheritance. I loved her, he said quietly. She knew. And she loved you too. That's why she made sure you'd be taken care of. What about Mom? Your mother made her choices. Your grandmother simply prepared for them. Another silence. Can I come visit you, Grandpa? I've been writing some new songs. I thought maybe I could play them for you. I'd like that very much. He came over that Saturday with his guitar. We sat in the living room, the same room where Jennifer had tried to convince me to sell the house, and he played me 3 new compositions. They were beautiful, melancholic, but hopeful, like early morning light through fog. Grandma would have loved these, I said when he finished. I wrote them for her, he said. The middle one is called The Architect's Dream. It's about building something that lasts. We talked for hours, about music, about Elizabeth, about his plans for the future. He was 24 and trying to make it as a session musician in Vancouver's studio scene. The money was tight, the work unpredictable. The house will help, I said. When the time comes, you'll have equity, stability. You can take risks with your music without worrying about rent. Grandpa, don't talk like that. You're going to be around for a long time. I hope so. But when I'm not, you'll be okay. Your grandmother made sure of it. He left at sunset, and I stood at the window watching the mountains turn purple in the fading light. Elizabeth had always loved this view. She'd sketched it 100 times, trying to capture the way the light changed with the seasons. A week later, Thomas called again. Jennifer's put the Okanagan house on the market. Has she? Listed for $1.9 million. She'll clear about $1.3 million after the realtor fees and capital gains tax. It's not nothing, but it's not the windfall she'd hoped for. And Marcus is furious, apparently. They had to take out a bridge loan to cover the property taxes while waiting for a buyer. How long will it take to sell? In this market? Could be 6 months to a year. Peachland isn't as hot as Kelowna. They'll carry those costs the whole time. I thought about Jennifer's face when she'd signed those papers, so sure she was getting away with something, so certain she was smarter than her grieving father. Elizabeth was right about everything, I said. She usually was, Thomas agreed. By the way, I've drafted the paperwork for you to move into the Okanagan house whenever you're ready. It's yours for life, remember. Move? Leave Kitsilano? Elizabeth thought you might want to, eventually. When the memories here get too heavy, the lake house is fully furnished. Everything's ready. I hung up and walked through the house. 43 years of memories in these rooms. Elizabeth's books in the study. Her coffee cup still in the kitchen cabinet. The dent in the wall from when we'd moved the couch, and I'd misjudged the corner. But she wasn't here anymore. She was in the plans she'd made, the love she'd shown Daniel, the way she'd protected me from our own daughter's greed. She was in the lake house I hadn't seen yet, renovated with care by one of her former students. I called Daniel. How would you like to take a road trip? I asked. To Peachland. I want to see what your grandmother built. We drove up the following weekend. Daniel drove my old Volvo while I navigated, watching the landscape change from coastal rainforest to interior dry lands. The Okanagan Valley spread out before us, vineyards and orchards climbing the hillsides. The house was exactly as Elizabeth would have wanted it. The exterior maintained its 1,960 seconds character. Horizontal cedar siding, low-pitched roof, walls of windows facing the lake. But inside, everything was new. Hardwood floors, modern kitchen, updated bathrooms. Her architectural drawings were framed on the walls. There were bookshelves already filled with her books, including several copies of the heritage preservation guides she'd written. In the main bedroom, there was an envelope on the dresser with my name on it. "Welcome home, my love," it said. "I'm sorry I couldn't be here to see your face when you first walked in. This is your place now. Rest here, heal here, watch the sunrise over the lake, and remember that I loved you more than words could ever say. Take care of Daniel. He's the best of both of us. And don't feel guilty about Jennifer. I gave her every chance to be a better person. She chose greed instead. That's not your fault or mine. It's simply who she is. Live well, Robert. You've earned it. Forever yours, Elizabeth." I read it 3 times, standing at the window that overlooked the lake. Daniel appeared in the doorway. "Grandpa, you okay?" I folded the letter carefully. "Yes, I said. I think I am. We spent the weekend there, swimming in the lake, barbecuing on the new deck, watching the stars come out over the water. Daniel played his guitar on the dock at sunset, and I thought about all the summers we'd spent here when Jennifer was young, before money became more important than memory. On Sunday, as we packed to leave, Daniel said, "You should move here, Grandpa. Full time." "You think so?" "Grandma built this for you, and it's beautiful. Plus, I could visit more often, maybe even stay here sometimes when I need to write music. The quiet would be good for that." I looked around the house one more time. No memories of Jennifer here. No ghosts of arguments or disappointments. Just clean spaces and new beginnings. "Maybe I will," I said. 3 months later, I did. I moved my essential belongings to Peachland and put the Kitsilano house on standby. Daniel stayed there sometimes when he had studio sessions in Vancouver, keeping an eye on things. I drove into the city once a month to check on it, to make sure the heat was working and the pipes weren't frozen. But my home was the lake now. I joined a book club in town, took up painting, something I'd always wanted to try, learned to sail a small boat. The neighbors were friendly, mostly retirees like me, people who'd worked hard and wanted to enjoy their later years somewhere beautiful. Jennifer never visited. She called once, 6 months after I moved. "Dad, I heard you're living in Peachland now." "I am." "In the lake house?" "Yes, but I thought you said it was a wreck." "It was, 5 years ago. Your mother had it renovated." "Why didn't you tell me?" "You didn't ask. You just assumed you knew better." "This whole thing is so unfair. Mom left you everything, the trust income, the houses, everything, and I got nothing. Nothing except a property that's cost me a fortune." "You got exactly what you deserved, Jennifer." She sucked in a breath. "How can you say that? I'm your daughter, and Daniel is my grandson. He visited your mother every week. He called her every Sunday. He cared about her as a person, not as a bank account. When's the last time you asked about her health instead of her assets?" Silence. "Your mother loved you," I continued, "but she also knew you. She knew that if she left you in charge of her estate, you'd push me into some retirement home and sell everything for the cash. She protected me the only way she could, and she rewarded the person who actually cared." "So, that's it? You're just going to cut me out of your life?" "I'm not cutting you out, but I'm not going to pretend your behavior was acceptable either. You tried to manipulate me when I was grieving. You lied about wanting to help when you really just wanted my house. Those are your choices, Jennifer. You have to live with them." She hung up. I haven't heard from her since. Daniel visits every month now. Sometimes he brings his guitar, and we have small concerts on the dock. Just him and me in the sunset. Sometimes he brings friends, other musicians, and they jam together while I cook dinner. He's getting more session work, building a reputation. Last month, he told me he'd saved enough for a down payment on a condo, but he was holding off because he knew the Kitsilano house would be his eventually. "Don't wait for me to die to start your life," I told him. "I'm not waiting for you to die, Grandpa. I'm enjoying you being alive." We were sitting on the deck, watching the stars come out over the lake. He was right, there was no light pollution out here. You could see the Milky Way, bright and clear across the sky. "Your grandmother would be proud of you," I said. "I hope so. I think about her a lot. About how she planned all this. How she knew exactly what everyone would do. She was a brilliant woman. She loved you a lot. You could tell from the letters she left, from the way she set everything up. It was all to protect you." "I loved her too," I said. "Still do." We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Daniel said, "Do you regret it, the way things worked out with Mom?" I thought about that. Did I regret that my daughter had shown her true colors? That Elizabeth's careful planning had exposed Jennifer's greed? That our relationship was now strained, perhaps permanently? "No," I said finally. "Your grandmother gave me the truth. That's a gift, even when it hurts. It's better to know who people really are than to live in denial." "Mom could still change," Daniel offered. "She could apologize, make things right." "She could," I agreed, "but I won't hold my breath. Some people never learn that love is worth more than money." Daniel nodded slowly. "Grandma learned. That's why she left this all to us." "Exactly." The Okanagan house sold eventually. Jennifer and Marcus cleared about 1.2 million after all the costs. I heard through mutual friends that they'd used it to pay off debts and buy a bigger house in West Vancouver. The financial pressure was off, but they'd spent months stressed and angry, carrying costs they couldn't afford on a property they'd acquired through greed rather than need. Meanwhile, I lived in peace. The $320,000 in annual royalties from Elizabeth's work funded a comfortable life. I donated some to the Architectural Preservation Society in her name, set up a scholarship for young architects, helped Daniel with his music career when he needed equipment or studio time. The money was nice, but it wasn't the point. The point was that Elizabeth had known me well enough to know I'd want to stay independent, that I'd need time to grieve without pressure, that I'd find comfort in this quiet place by the lake. She'd known Jennifer too, known that greed would cloud her judgment, that she'd see the Okanagan property as an opportunity rather than a trap, known that Marcus would encourage her, both of them so certain they were smarter than the grieving old man. But Elizabeth had been the smartest one of all. I keep her letter in the nightstand drawer, next to my reading glasses. Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I take it out and read it again. Forever yours, Elizabeth. And I am. Even now, especially now, I am forever hers. Daniel graduated to bigger gigs. His music started appearing in films and television shows. He credits his grandmother's belief in him, the stability she provided through the trust, the freedom to take artistic risks because he knew he'd always have a safety net. As for me, I paint. Landscapes mostly, trying to capture the way the light moves across the water. I'm not very good yet, but I'm learning. Elizabeth always said that learning was the point, not perfection. I'm 68 now, just a year older than when this all started, but I feel younger somehow, lighter, living according to my own timeline, in a space that was designed with love, surrounded by the legacy of a woman who understood that the best revenge isn't anger, it's peace. Jennifer made her choice. She chose money over memory, inheritance over integrity, and in doing so, she got exactly what she deserved, a brief windfall wrapped in stress, and the permanent knowledge that her mother had seen through her. Daniel made his choice too. He chose presence over presence, time over treasure, and he was rewarded with a future, a foundation, and the knowledge that he was truly loved. As for me, I chose to trust Elizabeth one more time, to follow the plan she'd laid out, even when it hurt, even when it meant facing hard truths about my own daughter. And now, sitting on this deck, with the sunset painting the mountains gold and the lake reflecting the sky like a mirror, I know she was right. She was always right. The house destroyed Jennifer financially, at least temporarily. But this house, this beautiful, peaceful sanctuary Elizabeth built for me, saved my life. That was the difference between them. Jennifer looked at property and saw profit. Elizabeth looked at property and saw home. I know which one I'd rather be.